So I was doing some work in the garage and I was thinking about the video editing so far. And the other day when I was editing the video, my wife, looking over my shoulder, saw some of what I was doing and she said, "That's not you." And what she was referring to was the talking head that I tried to do, a super fast Matt style, where I sit in a chair and I talk to the camera, effectively talking to the audience. But it's just not me. More of this vlog style where I walk around and kind of hold the camera. To me, this seems a little bit more natural, to me at least. So I'm going to continue to do that. And what I really needed to do was give a background on the truck. Also going through some of the editing, I realized I just kind of jumped into the build, not really giving any history of the truck, not really giving any background of, how did I get here? Why did I pick this truck? I was just kind of throwing some videos together of me starting the build. And for context, I feel like the background's necessary. You kind of need to know where the truck came from before you can know where the truck's going to go. So when I bought this truck, I actually lived up in the Rust Belt, and this was one of the cleanest trucks that I found. Yeah, it had a little bit of front end damage on it, and yes, it had a little bit of rust on it, but compared to some of the other trucks I was looking at around the same price point, this was the best looking truck I found. It ran, it drove, it had a clean title, and it was the truck for me. When I bought the truck originally, it had 33s with a 17-inch wheel with a 6-inch rough country lift. One of the first things I did was actually get a Forever Sharp steering wheel. I don't know if you can see that. Forever Sharp steering wheel. I bought this in like Thanksgiving and like Christmas was around the corner. They were having a sale. Got the steering wheel from, I think, my sister-in-law, and got that installed pretty much immediately. So I got the steering wheel, and then because of the front end damage, the next thing I did was venture out to a junkyard, pull off an OEM fender and get that in. That was the maroon fender that you can see in some of the other clips, but I went ahead and took care of that first. So now the torsion keys on the suspension kit were maxed all the way out. It bump steered like crazy. It had just the stiffest ride. It was terrible. So I knew I had to address that, and knowing that I wanted to body drop this truck. That was the whole reason I bought the truck, is I bought this truck specifically because I wanted to body drop a two-door Blazer. Yeah, it's four-wheel drive. Didn't really matter to me. Building a full frame, whatever. Most trucks I've owned over the years have always had some sort of drop kit on them. And so this truck being no different, took the 6-inch lift off, put in a 2-inch lowering kit on, 2-inch keys in the front, 2-inch shackles in the rear, took 8 inches out of the suspension, and threw on these GMC 20s. It was good for me. During that same time period, I had one of the knee assemblies, broke off some lugs, had a couple rusted bolts on the lower ball joint, so I ended up placing the entire knee assembly and making it effectively a two-wheel drive truck. I had Bluetooth axles on the front end. You'll see some of that later when I'm pulling the suspension off, but Bluetooth front axles, I should do a little how-to video on that later. Anyway, Bluetooth front axles on the front end, like I said, effectively making the truck two-wheel drive, and that was totally fine. So I did that suspension work, and then one of my friends at the time was also getting into cars, younger guy, or younger than me rather, and he was getting into cars, doing a lot of bolt-on modifications, and I wanted to show him what you could do in the realm of custom, so you didn't have to go out and spend all this money to have somebody else do the work on your car for you. So that being said, I started working on the sound system, which I'll get into in just a second. When it comes to building something like this, even just the modifications I did up to basically how you see the truck today, it's time and money. If you don't have time, it's going to cost you money. If you don't have money, it's going to cost you some time. That's just the way it is. So explaining that to him, I said, hey, I'm going to build a sound system for this truck. It's not going to be like the coolest thing ever, but I'm going to show you what you can do, what you can have fun with. And I'm going to show you that I can do this all in my garage. He hadn't built out his collection of tools to the degree that I have. Being that I worked in the shop for many years, he wasn't there yet. He was just starting his career off, and I said, "Hey, man, I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you what you can do. We can do this. Let's go." So, I put together a plan. Had to get the alternator addressed, another battery, wiring. I had another truck that I pulled a sound system out before I sold it, so I had two 12s and an amp, and then I had another 4-channel laying around. So I went ahead, like I said, put together a build plan, ordered a box. Started looking at some interior pieces that I needed, some odds and ends, and then the headliner was sagging, so I wanted to redo the headliner. So I went ahead and ordered the headliner material, pulled the headliner out and all the supporting components for that. Went ahead and got that stripped down in the garage. I've got some footage of that, probably throw in here, but got the headliner stripped down, got it rewrapped, threw it back in the truck, built the box, dyed the rear carpet, changed out the head unit, fixed some wiring bug, some little wiring gremlin that I had under the dash. I got a higher output alternator. I won't call it a high output alternator, but I think it's a 200 amp alternator, which I think the factory was 90. So this is like upgrade. Got a 200 amp alternator, second battery. Showed him where you can get the wiring diagrams for the radio and show you that, you can do this stuff yourself in an older vehicle. So went ahead and built the box. Like I said, got it all put in, and I tried to do it within a certain timeline because he was about to move, I was about to move. So got it done before he left, and he was able to come over and demo it. And, he was blown away by the fact that I put it together. I'm speaking for him when I say he's blown away. Actually, I should say his mind was blown. He had never seen anything like it. It was the most awesome thing. And I'm the coolest dude he knows because I did it myself. That's what he said. Anyway, so got the sound system built, put it together, took it to a couple Cars and Coffee. And much to my surprise, where I was living at the time, not a lot of dudes had sound systems. So we took it to a couple Cars and Coffees, and I used to love pulling up to those little local meets, just blaring. Yeah, a little tacky, whatever. I had a timeline in which I knew I was going to be moving. So part of the reason for doing the sound system over anything else was basically I can keep the truck as a roller. If you just do a quick sound system, obviously you're not disassembling much. So you can keep the truck together. And when it comes time to move, truck goes on a trailer easy, or the truck drives pretty well because it's still a truck. It's not a body and a frame. It's still a truck. So kept it all up, and then eventually had the truck shipped down here to where I live now. So once it got here, there were a couple things that I needed in this house that I had in the last house. One of them being the 220 for the air compressor and the welder. So I had to get that installed before I could start actually working on the frame now. So that all is installed, and so obviously that's where we're at in this whole process, is that, you got to do something first before you can get started. There's a process to this. You can't just send it. I mean, you can, but it doesn't always work out the way you think it's going to work out. Anyway, 220's installed. I've got my air, got my welder, got my saw, started working on the frame. That's where we're at today. But I say all that to say that the context of which this truck, like of how we got here, is important for understanding. Like I said, when I was editing the video, just jumped straight in. Didn't really give you any, who am I? What am I? What is this? How do we get here? What's going on? It just didn't feel right. It felt like I was missing something. So building this to give you a little bit of understanding of how we got here. Now about me. I previously worked in the automotive world. I went to trade school many years ago and decided I wanted to paint cars because that was, at the time, the coolest thing you could do. Painted cars for a little bit, eventually got tired of that. Went into the office, wrote estimates for a little bit, eventually got tired of that, and went on to go do something else. Now I'm happy, and the skills that I've learned, while they are, perishable skills, and you need to refresh them periodically, they're, the basis of painting cars, the basis of taking cars apart, it's all relatively the same. And it's, I hate to be cliche, but it's kind of like riding a bike. And I can't look at a bolt the way I used to and be like, oh, that's a 10 millimeter. But I can look at it and go, it's either a 10 or a 12. I'll go grab a 10 or a 12, and it's usually one of those. So, that's still with me, and I don't work on the truck as often as I would like, but I just have other things now. I have other priorities. So this is still a big part of my life, big part of who I am, and it's a fun hobby that I really enjoy. And the skills that I learned from the automotive industry are going to translate so well into the hobby that I have now. So that's a little bit about me. That's a little bit about the truck. Hopefully, if you like this kind of stuff, you'll stick around, watch me build a frame or not. But either way, it's going to be a good time. A hobby like this is fun, relatively safe. It's not cheap, I'll say that. But it's something that I absolutely enjoy doing. More than anything, I love taking a truck out to a show. Before I had the kids, it was just me and my wife, and we'd go out to truck shows and go out with some of the custom shops I used to work with and go show those cars. And, it was a good time being in the booth and, having all the people come by. And, something I always wanted was, well, I want that. I want my own truck out there. I don't, I love that I worked on this guy's truck, and I love that, he's getting recognition, but I want my own. I want to do that. I want them to ask, do you own this truck? And I want to say, yeah, I do. So that's part of that is, I've owned a couple other trucks in the past, a couple other back vehicles in the past, and both of those, one of them I had to replace so many parts on. Another one, the whole air suspension was shot, so I had to redo the whole thing. And so this time around, I said, I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to start bottom to top, do the whole thing. That way it's built exactly the way I want it, to my specifications. I'm the customer. If I'm not satisfied with it, well, it's my fault and I did it, and no one can be mad at me but me. So, it's just one of those things that I'm okay with, and I'm going to build it for myself. There's a sense of pride that goes into building something like this. It's just something I hope to achieve in doing this. But if you like this, hang out with me, watch the build, or the destruction of a perfectly good truck. Either way, I think it's going to be a good time. Hope you hang in there.